Funky.
Welcome to KERRIISMS Speaks. I'm your host, KERRIISMS, aka Kerri Olivia, a writer, life coach, and digital creator at KERRIISMS.co. Every week, I share commentary and interviews on the adventures of life from a millennial's point of view. Some adventures may be personal, some may be professional. Either way, I hope you can stay tuned and stay true. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of KERRIISMS Speaks. I'm so happy to be here. I also want to apologize for the hiatus. I'm going to touch on it very quickly because I really want to get into the conversation. I had a bit of going through a bit of a mindset shift in terms of going from a scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset, thinking about the ways that I can show up more for myself as a creator and eventually show up more for you all. And that's something that I've been really working on and working within myself. So that was the reason for the hiatus, but we are back. And I want to thank you all for your patience, for the time that you have spent. There's been so many people behind the scenes telling me how much they enjoy the show. So I want to shout out Dolores. She's a special fan of the show. I want to shout out all the people who have given me their time to sit down and chat with me. And I'm really excited to share the content and the conversations that I've been having. So please stay tuned. There is definitely more to come. But this episode is one that is very near and dear to my heart. I had the opportunity to speak to one of my high school classmates, and wow, that conversation was definitely an experience and a beautiful one. And I'm so happy that I had that opportunity. And I have this opportunity now to share this conversation with you. So yeah, we're gonna get right into it. The next guest, her name is Gerri Connaught, and she is a licensed master social worker and currently a PhD candidate at New York University. Her clinical experience includes working with various student populations, such as first-generation students, college students, student veterans, and adult learners in transitioning into life as a college student. Through her work, Gerri hopes to center the voices of students of color and advocate for their right to thrive academically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually in academic environments. I don't even have any more words. I really want to share it with you guys, so let's go. We knew each other from Brooklyn College. What did you major in Brooklyn?
So I majored in psych.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I loved it. Like, I love psych.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was gonna be a psychologist after I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work out. God had different plans for me. So I graduated. No, I remember in my junior year, I was thinking about what I'm gonna do next, and I knew I wanted to do grad school. So I was like, I had a mentor who was like, "Oh, you should apply to doctoral programs." So I was like, okay, like, oh, that seems like the next step. Like, sure. Like, I knew I was gonna at some point like work on my PhD, but I didn't know like what that route would look like or how I would get there. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then I also had another mentor who was like, well, also apply to like some backup programs just in case, you know. And so she was like, have you thought about social work? And I was like, oh, I never thought about it really, but let me look into it. And when I looked into it, I was like, oh, I really like this. Like, this seems like a lot more of like where I'm supposed to be. It's more aligned with like my values and stuff like that. So I applied to like doctoral programs in psych, and then I applied to master's programs in social work because you need your master's first before you can get a PhD in social work. So I was like, okay. And as I'm applying, like, I knew that social work was really where I was really supposed to be going. Like, I just didn't feel it in my spirit that a PhD in psych was like where I needed to be at that time, or like the direction I needed to take. But I was like, let me just do it anyway, let me just see what happens. And as it turns out, I got into none of the doctoral programs in psych. I got into every master's program in social work.
That's amazing.
And I was like, all right, if this ain't a sign, I don't know what it is. Then this is it. So I ended up going with social work, and then it was like a decision I never regretted. I was like, this is it. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is my field. And then after I got my master's, I worked for 2 years, and then I was like, all right, I'm getting the itch to go back to school, and it's either now or never, because if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it because I'm getting older. I don't want to be in school for the rest of my life. So let me just take a shot and try it. And then here we are.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So how long has this journey been for you so far?
So I'm
Your
currently
academic
now,
journey.
yeah. So now I'm in my third year of working on my PhD at NYU. And everyone's like, when are you graduating? And that's very hard to answer because it really depends on like your dissertation and when you hit like certain milestones. But my goal is to have it done by like May 2022. That's my
Okay.
personal goal.
Okay.
So yeah, I feel like I've been in school forever though, to be honest with you, Kerri. Like
Yeah.
just like I'm ready to be out. I'm ready to do what I need to do and just get on with my life. Like school is great. It's amazing and I'm not complaining, but I'm also just like I've had enough. Like it's 29 years.
Well, for sure. How long is the PhD program?
So it's 4 years. It can be longer depending on like what your dissertation topic is, how long you're taking to do your research and all those things, and just life. Like life happens. So it can be longer than that, but they don't fund you for more than 4 years. So that's also an incentive for me to be like, all right,
to get it going.
Yeah.
I feel you. I feel you on that. What is a day in the life for you as someone in social work?
Yeah. So right now, my day always starts with like me kind of just preparing myself and grounding myself for what the day is supposed to hold. So for me, that includes like praying, that includes meditating, that includes like sneaking in a workout for like at least an hour, like every other day. I try to do like every other day so that I can get like rest days in between. That includes journaling, like if I feel like the need or like the spirit to do so. All of that, like the prayer, the meditating, and the journaling usually takes about an hour. The exercising usually takes about an hour. So I try to give myself at least like 2 hours of the day that's like purely about me and grounding myself and getting ready for the rest of
I love that.
whatever's
Yeah.
coming. Then I'll start my day. So I'll start like I'll do work, and most of the time it's doing work and trying to take breaks in between. And it looks very different now because of COVID. Like I've had to like make more of an intentional effort to really take breaks and really step away because you can just get sucked into like for hours. So I've been doing that, and then I try to finish like around like in the evening time, but that's also it's really tricky because that's sometimes also when I do my best work. So sometimes I'll just like I'll just do it, like I'll just spend the entire evening doing it. I probably won't finish until like maybe 11 at night, depending on what I'm doing or how busy the semester is. And then get up and start it again, And usually like the weekends are usually my days to kind of be like, all right, this is my day off. This is my time. Sundays, especially. Even like Sundays, I'm not doing anything. Don't bother me. Do not call me to go out. I probably will.
Do not disturb.
Do not disturb. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that you have like a set day just to be like, this is Gerri's day.
Yes.
No one can enter the Gerri vortex but Gerri. I love that so much. Yeah. I really like that.
So true. And I feel like it's so needed now because like before COVID, there was more of a separation, I felt like, between like your work hours and your personal time. Like you can at 5 o'clock, if you were working like a 9 to 5, you could be like, all right, 5, this is it, this is the cutoff, I can be out, and now it's not like that because of COVID. Now you're working from home, and I think sometimes people feel like, well, because you're working from home, well, that means you got all the time in the world. Like, what's you can be even more productive. And it's like, no, we're still in the pandemic.
Right, right. That's a great way to set boundaries. Being like,
absolutely,
no.
Absolutely.
Like, so this is my time now.
This is my time, and I've had to be more intentional about like taking that time for myself and doing like more self-care stuff. I've had to like purposely be like, okay, no, I need to set this time. This is my time, and I'm like very strict about it. I have way better days sometimes than other days, but I'm always like determined to be like, all right, no, we're gonna start again. Tomorrow's a new day, and we're gonna try it again.
Yeah, I love that. So when it comes to self-care, you said you do prayer, journaling, working out. When did you start your self-care journey?
So I started it, I want to say, when I was getting my master's, so in grad school. I didn't really become very serious about it until
Mhm,
I started my PhD. Because I
mhm,
felt like that was going to be a whole new level of stress. It sure
mhm,
is.
mhm,
And I was like, all right, in order for me to survive this, and just getting advice also from like mentors and other like peers of mine who were doing the PhD thing and going that route, like,
mhm,
or in med school, they were like, yeah, you got to be on it. Like, you really got to take care of yourself because you can go crazy, you can run yourself ragged, you can, just develop so many like health problems just from the stress alone of like doing this. So you really
mhm,
got to take care of yourself. So I didn't really get serious and intentional about it until like I started my PhD, and now it started with like working out. Like before this, I was not. I'm gonna tell you right now, I was not a fan of working out. I
mhm,
was not that person in the gym. I was not that. It wasn't until like I started my program that I was like, okay, let me start, working out. Let me start like really taking care of myself. Let me start running. I hated running. Running was never
yeah.
even like, me and running just never belonged in the same sentence. But but then when I started doing it, I started finding like, oh, this is actually like a big stress reliever. Like, I felt
Ah,
so much better, and it was very cathartic. Like, it was
mhm,
great. That really got me into it. And then like now I love working out. I can't, it's hard for me like to go days off without doing it because
mhm,
I just love it so much, and it is such a big part of like feeling good and like grounding myself.
mhm,
Um so now I love it. But like it really started then because I was like, okay, this is gonna be a stressful journey.
mhm,
It's gonna be a long 4 years, let me really step up my game here. And then from there, it really began like experimenting with like, okay, what other self-care things like work for me? What do I really enjoy? What are some things that make me feel really good? And then being
mhm.
very purposeful about like pursuing those things or trying these things out. So it's been like a whole journey.
That's amazing. I love how it started out. I've been hearing different stories, and which I love about this podcast, of how individuals started their self-care journey, and it starts in so many different ways,
Yes.
but it's like we have all of these different individual stories, but at the same time, like we are still part of the collective in some way, to align and be like, it's important to take care of you and to make
Yeah.
sure that you're good. And it's okay if you make that choice and be unapologetic about it. That's something that I'm still working on. Having that guilt about
Yeah.
taking the time for myself. I'm just like, oh, I don't. It's still breaking out of that mindset. It's just like, it's okay to take care of you. It's okay to prioritize yourself, because you cannot really be the best you or show up as the best you if you're not taking that time to pour back into yourself and to make sure that you're full. So I
Absolutely.
really love that it's a part of your everyday life.
Absolutely. That's so true. Like, it really is for me. And I think that's the start of it for me. It's really about like, how do I fill my cup and how do I make sure I'm in alignment with like my best self and my higher self as much as I possibly can,
Mhm,
in order for me to really be able to show up the way that I want to show up in the world and interact the way that I want to interact and do the things that I want to do. And I feel like, as crazy as this whole COVID thing has been, I
mhm.
think the one benefit of it is that it really forced all of us to really just slow the hell down. Like,
Oh,
really be conscious about what we're doing and how we're treating ourselves, and really shift that, because
mhm,
everything is just always on the go. You're always running. You're always running from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's not healthy. Like, I feel like it's not healthy. It's not sustainable. We were not meant to be, driven like machines,
yes,
like,
yes, I definitely agree with that.
so I feel like it allowed us to really just slow down and be like, okay, what is really working and what is not working, and how do I shift this now? How do I make changes, and how do we make this a thing? And just making it more intentional, I think.
That's a really great word, being intentional about it. This year, it allowed us to slow down and to really reconnect with who we are. And that's a very scary journey in itself. So I can understand why everyone is losing and they're just like, oh my gosh, what's happening this year? Oh my gosh, what's that? But it's a very interesting time right now to really find out who you are, because a lot of
Yeah.
times we go day in and day out and we're not really aware of who we are as people, and we're just on autopilot. So I think this year was very, very, very intentional in the
Yeah.
best way. As much as it was very, all the emotions came up this year, but I
Hmm.
really, really appreciate how, or just me being a hermit myself, but I just really appreciate, but just really taking the time to slow down and taking that time to really reconnect with yourself and get to know yourself a lot better.
Yeah.
I love 2020 for that.
You know, it's funny. I feel like that you're right. It's very hard to do. And I think when it first happened, people were really freaking out because they're like, what do you mean I have to spend time by myself? I don't know what that
Mhm.
means. I don't know what that means to know
Right.
myself. Like I'm just sitting here bored,
Hmm.
bored in the house and I'm in the house bored. Like
Bored.
I'm
Yeah.
just, and it's like I really learned like just from other people's experiences that like sitting with yourself is not some like for me, I like sitting with myself. I've always been very self-reflective and just also kind of like more on the introvert spectrum side of the spectrum as well. So
Hmm.
like I don't mind being by myself for like long periods of time. I'll
Hmm.
keep myself busy. I journal. I do all the things. So
Yeah.
but for other people, I realize like how difficult that can be to really just like be in touch with yourself and really
Hmm.
get to know yourself. And people
Yeah.
really struggle with that. It can be scary, but 2020 was like, nah, y'all gonna sit with yourselves today, okay?
Yes. Absolutely. I think a lot of it also was you get to hear the stream of thoughts that go through your head.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
get to hear all of it, and it's a lot louder now because you have to sit with yourself and
Yes.
you really have to look within. And a lot of people, that's not the way that society is with the 9 to 5.
Exactly.
Well, the way I would say, I don't want to say society, I would say West, because that's what I know, Western culture and society. The 9 to 5, hustle and grind, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. There's not a lot of time to hear the stream of thoughts, so your stream of consciousness.
Absolutely.
So to hear that, you're just like, oh, is that me?
Is that me?
Right, right. 2020 really allowed us that time for whoever wanted to take it to
Yeah.
get to be in touch with that.
Sometimes like I think as 2020 has shown us, like sometimes it takes like being in the most like tragic of circumstances and being at the lowest place in order to really figure that out and really
Mm,
figure yourself out and figure out what you're made of, figure out like, okay, what are all the things that I've adopted, the messages that I've adopted and internalized that is from me and that is not from me. Like, what is mine? What did I inherit? And what do I now need to cut off and get rid of because it's not working for me anymore in alignment with who I am and who I want to be anymore.
mhm,
And I think, like, yeah, you can get to that place by like having everything be great and rosy. But I think sometimes that the most deepest lessons come from when you are just like, life has broken you down and you are like, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go from here. And that's where you really learn like who you are and what you know what messages you speak to yourself and like how
mhm.
they fit you know
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure in terms of like the rock bottom when you hit that crisis. I was talking to somebody about this, and you can tell me if you can relate or
Mhm.
agree or disagree too. That's fine too. You repeat behaviors when you have a certain success rate. So if you have a certain success rate, there's no need for you to change behavior. And rock
Right.
bottom is when you you've gone past that success rate and you are now at zero.
Yeah.
That certain behavior, it doesn't work anymore. So you are forced to change. And
Mhm.
that's when a lot of looking at yourself, figuring out who you are starts to happen. Sometimes it can be like a slow change. Sometimes it's a very like abrupt change.
Yeah.
And I think for 2020, for a lot of us, it was an abrupt one
Yeah.
because then the hustle and bustle didn't work anymore. So we
Yeah.
had to figure out how to continue and how to move on.
Yes.
when that behavior or that kind of pattern stopped working.
It's like it forced us to create new patterns and to
Yes.
create, new ways of functioning and showing up in the world
Hmm.
that I don't think we really would have been able to do if like things continued as normal.
No. We got to start from scratch again. And I think that's what, as sometimes when you're in the middle of the transitionary period, when you're in the middle of transforming, I remember looking at your stories in terms of butterflies being one of your favorite,
Yeah.
and I can, that hit me so deep because just that period of transition, it can be a painful experience sometimes because you're in the middle of you're becoming, but you're still who you were. And then you can also see who you are going to be. And that leap to get to that place it can feel like a lot. And I think that's a lot of what happened for us in 2020, So,
Absolutely.
and it's like, how can we rebuild?
How can you rebuild and how can
Yeah.
you evolve into something better? You
Hmm.
not just rebuilding and doing the same thing over again, but like how can you now like shift it and just operate from a higher place, than
Hmm.
before. And
Right.
that's what it is. It's all about, life is constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly us going through, metamorphosis and transformations. Like that's life. That is what makes it, so crazy and so beautiful at the same time.
At
And
the
so
same
at
time.
the same time,
You're feeling both. You're feeling both at the same
same
time.
time.
That was
And
a new experience for me too, like feeling both, like feeling multiple things at the same time. Oh
yeah,
man, I was like, what is this? This is new. It's a whole new world.
it's so true. I mean, I tell my friends this all the time. I tell people this all the time. Like, you can hold like two truths at the same time. You can hold multiple truths at the same time.
Hmm.
As contradictory as they may be, you can still hold all of these things. Life is just it's crazy, it's chaotic, it's always changing, and like, what are we gonna do in order to evolve and meet it? We could
Right.
sit and stay stuck, but that's not gonna do much.
Hmm. Hmm.
That doesn't help us. We just gotta learn how to just be the best that we can be with it. So
Right. I love how you talked about evolving. I've been seeing many Black women getting into the space of spirituality, into the space of taking care of themselves more, talking about resting more. And for you, I know we're both, well, just for the record, we are both Grenadian.
hey,
And two Spice
yes,
Girls in the house.
my style, sis.
Yes, yes, girl. So I wanted to move into that a little bit because I think as a Black society, a Black community, I can't speak for everyone's Black experience because even your experience will be different from mine, even though we're both Grenadian.
Right?
But your experience will be different from mine because that's just how life goes. Everyone has a custom made view of
Right.
life. But I know when it comes to the Black community and for sure the Caribbean community, when talking about self-care and mental health, that's something that's is like, what are you talking about? What kind of shippiness
What
is this?
stupidness you talking?
What shippiness is this? Talk about self-care.
Self-care.
What's better care for these dishes in the sink?
Oh, surreal.
I know. You're caring for the dust on the floor with the broom.
I'll give you something to care
To care
about.
about, right? So for me, I can say that it's been very beautiful to watch Black women and some Black men too get into the space of getting in tune and reconnecting with themselves on a spiritual level, definitely taking more accountability for their mental health and stuff like that. So I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, how do you view the Caribbean Collective's approach to self-care, wellness, or mental health?
So like growing up, like it wasn't a thing. Like exactly like you said, like what
Not
was
at
that?
all.
Self-care? What was
Not
that?
at all. Not at all.
Not a thing at all. Like
Yeah.
no, like I didn't it wasn't modeled. It wasn't something that was modeled. It wasn't something that like I seen. Self-care was you better take care of this family, take care of these responsibilities.
Right.
That was really, really it. And then in terms of like mental health, that also really wasn't even
Mm.
like a thing. Like, I always say that like people would always be like, oh, there was no such thing as like mental health diagnoses or like, like, oh, this person, has depression, this person, has anxiety or whatever,
Mm.
like, or this person, like, has schizophrenia. Like, no, like the Caribbean version of that is this person is nuts, this person has a demon, this
Mm.
person,
Yes.
has some type of spirit that's not right. Like,
Yes. Yes.
that was the explanation. So yeah, it wasn't something that was really modeled, I think, but I will say though, I think there's also a difference also in terms of like how cultures view like self-care. So even though like westernized version of self-care is like you like take the day off and you get your nails done, you go to the spa, you
Yeah.
do yoga, you you exercise,
Mm-hmm.
like the things that I mentioned, you exercise, you journal or whatever. And I will say that there are aspects though of Caribbean culture that I would consider self-care that maybe the westernized culture doesn't, like
Mm.
being in community. That's a form of self-care,
Yes.
you know
Thank
being
you for
able to,
sharing that. Yes.
yeah, like being able to like be with your family and just do pure jokes, like, or being able to just have those community conversations with friends or girlfriends or whatever. Like community and being part of a collective is very much a part of Caribbean culture.
Mm.
And that also for me has been a big form of self-care. And I think especially now during these times of COVID, during these times of like social unrest that you're seeing about police brutality and all these things, like being in community is a big part of my mental health and making sure
Mm.
that I'm okay and making sure like my people are okay.
Mm.
So I think that there are certain aspects, like mental health is just not a thing, but like there are certain aspects of Caribbean culture that I think is self-care that we don't name it as such.
Yes, yes, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. In terms of in terms of community, when I personally started my self-care journey, it helped me understand how much I needed everyone else
Yeah.
and how much I needed my community, I needed support. I
Yes.
needed how it was okay to ask for help and lean on other people because I don't have it all figured out. I don't have it all together. When I hit my rock bottom, I didn't do it alone. I couldn't have done it alone. Like getting from that place of the rock bottom to where I am now, I needed my community. Being a Caribbean person, I'm so glad that you touched on that. It definitely taught us about really leaning on each other. And they didn't really make a big deal about it, but it's something that is like really ingrained into us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I see it, I think, more so like being in academia, like it's very
Mm.
individualized. It's very much like you on your own, you figure this out by yourself.
Mm.
Everyone's always competing with each other. Like it's just very siloed and very much like all your success like is on you. It's just
Mm.
only on you. You figure out everything by yourself. And that's something that I value in Caribbean culture, is that it's not like that. Like everyone's always helping each other. Everyone's always like, oh, you need help with this? Like, let me see what I can do for you. Oh,
Mm.
you doing that? Let me see how I can support. Like that's one of the beautiful things that I love about our culture. Like it's very collective. It's very, and sometimes I'm gonna say it too. That can also sometimes be a challenge because sometimes you're so used to putting the community before yourself that you don't, you need to balance that, right? But like
Right.
but yeah, like the collectivity of it all and just knowing like this is just not my journey. Like I need support, I need help,
Mm.
I can't do this by myself. We can't do anything in this world by ourselves. Like we weren't made for that. We were always
Yeah.
be collectively like helping each other. So
We're wired for love and connection.
absolutely.
As much as we can say that, oh, I'm an independent woman or I'm an independent Black woman or something, I think that's something that was we were conditioned into, or like a kind of stereotype. But honestly, I've been really looking into the softer parts of me.
Mhm.
It's been such a relief, like a sigh of refreshing, like a breath of air, coming up for air, just being like, I am not as strong always as I project myself out to be, and my community definitely helps me to be my better self, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
we can't do it alone. It's not possible. We can work side by side. We don't need to compare ourselves to each other
Absolutely.
or the competition. It's not necessary.
It's not necessary. And I think for like so long, especially as Black women, that's been part of our narrative. Like, you're so strong, you're so resilient, you're so independent that you can do all these things by yourself. And yet it's
Mm.
great. But that's also like a survival strategy. We've had to do that in
Right.
order to
Right.
survive. Like we've had to do that in order to like thrive, you know. But we get tired, you know,
Yeah.
we get exhausted. And part of the strength that we have is that we don't have to rely on ourselves. We have a community to rely on. You know, we have
Mm.
a community that we can call on to, you know, whether it's providing resources, whether it's praying for you and lifting you up in prayer, whether it is, you know, helping you like get in touch more with your spirituality, like whatever. Like there's always something to that you can go, you know, to your community with,
Mm.
you know?
Mm.
So we can't do it alone.
Right. And even for the happy hormones, when you need like a boost of like
Yes,
you need a boost of serotonin or like oxytocin. A lot of it can be from sharing time, spending time with your family and friends,
absolutely.
you know? And we need each other more than we think we do, you
We
know? And it's okay to lean into that. It's okay to say that I don't have to be alone. I don't have to do this alone. So, yeah,
exactly.
thank you so much for bringing that up. Like community care is just as important as self-care.
No, we
Yeah.
absolutely can't. The same thing. I learned this, I think, I mean, I always kind of knew it in the back of my head. I don't think it started hidden for me until probably like this past summer with
Mm.
everything going on with all the social unrest going on.
Yes, how we came together
Yes,
was really powerful.
it really
Very, very,
was
yeah.
very, very powerful. And just even just the way we came together and the progress that and the changes that we've been also been able to make, but also the way that we like checked in on each other, the
Hmm.
way that we like, you know, just make sure we were okay, like make sure like you're good, like you feeling all right
Right,
today. Like
right.
it was just on a whole other level. And I was like, I need this. Like I didn't realize
Hmm.
how much I needed it until then. And I was like,
Hmm.
I need this, you know?
And
So
even as a global society, how
yeah.
they came through, and how what we've been saying for centuries was finally starting to make sense.
Finally, people woke
So
up. Been
it
been
was
sleeping.
I know it was so interesting to
Yeah,
see that our community, the Black community, came together, but
yeah,
we also had the global community on our side as well, and that was it was a very emotional thing, a very
yeah.
emotional experience. We don't need all the things that we think we need. It's very simple. If you can just be there and listen
Exactly.
and
Hold
just let me hold space and let me share my experience. All I need, I don't need to convince you that
exactly.
I don't need you to convince me. I don't need to convince you. I just want you to hold space.
Yes.
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
it.
You can still hold on to your many truths, as you said.
Right.
All I need for you is for you to tell me. If someone tells me, help me understand, I'm just like, that's it. You got my heart. You got my heart. And you're just like, help me understand what you're going through so I can see and be like, I never saw it that way before.
Yeah,
And that's how I think a lot of the global community, because we had the time to slow down, they're like, wow, I never saw it that way before.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I also think too there was just like this really big lack of empathy, you
Oh,
know, and it's still
yes.
I mean it's still there. But
It's
like
still, yeah, it's very much there. Yeah.
but there was this big lack of empathy and compassion of like exactly what you said. Let me just be here. Like, let me just try to understand. Let me just open myself up to like seeing things differently. Like that was like non-existent
Right.
for so long, and it just got worse. Like I feel like it got to a place where it's just like nobody gives a f about anybody. Like it's just,
No.
and
Hmm.
you continue to see it now. You see it with like, you know, not even just politically, but even also with as simple as wearing a mask. Like people making a big thing of like, I'm not wearing a mask. I don't have to do that. Not thinking
Hmm.
about like
The other
how that
person.
can affect other
Right.
people outside
Hmm.
of you, outside of yourself. Like it just feels like it felt like that just went down the drain for
Hmm.
a while. Um, but you're right, like, and I think that's where community comes in. When you have people who are like, all right, yeah, that's crazy, but you know what? Let's get together, let's do this. Let me, you know, you need to vent real quick, like lay it on me. You know,
Hmm.
like you
Hmm.
need to get this out, like let's do that. You want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. Like
Yeah.
it's so important. It's so important.
It is. It is. And empathy is a very big thing, and it's one of the hardest human communication skills that we have to build on. But it's
Yeah,
so important. It's just trying to just help me see where you're coming from. That's all.
that's it.
That's all. And you can, if you don't know, you can ask questions. Once you sit down, like if you're in conflict with someone, I'm not as scared of conflict as I used to be. I used
Mm.
to be like, nah, I'm not trying to do it. Nah, nah, nah. No, no, no,
No,
no, no,
no, no, no.
no, 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 no. But now I'm not so afraid of it because people want to be seen. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to mess up and make mistakes sometimes, and it's also okay to be like, hey, I made a mistake here, but I want to learn how to do better. I want to learn how to treat you better. What are some of the benefits of practicing self-care as a Caribbean person, and some challenges?
Hmm. um I think the benefit, I will say one, it's like two sides of the same coin, and I kind of alluded to it earlier. I think the benefit is having that collective community to share, like to share your experiences with. You know, it's there's something about being in community where you don't like sometimes you don't even have to like fully express how you're feeling or your thoughts. You just know because people know. Like they
Mm,
know what you're
mm,
talking about before you even have to say it. Um so there's that. I think the thing that makes it challenging is that, and maybe I think maybe your experience is different from mine. You can tell me too. For me, like being a part of a collective culture, it's I've always seen it as like you always put everybody first before you do
mm,
you, right?
mm,
Like it's always making sure this person so and so is good before you make sure you're good, or before you make sure like you have enough to sustain you, right? And
mm,
I think that's where the balance comes in, because you need to be able to, yes, give and to share, like that's part of it, but you also need to continue to make sure that your own cup is full and you're not giving too much. And
mm,
so it's okay to be like, you know, I really would love to go out, but I just really need this time for myself. I
mm.
would really love to give right now, but I don't have the capacity to do it. And not feel guilty about it, not
Right.
feel some type of way about it, not feel like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm putting this person out, or they don't gonna like me because I said no, like, you know, they're gonna think I'm
Yeah.
selfish.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's not selfish. Like you have to be able to make sure your own cup is full before you're able to pour that into other people, you know? So I think that's the beautiful part, but it can also be tricky if you don't keep it in check.
In check.
Mm.
Yes. For me, I learned the other way around, where
Mm.
it's like put others first before. But I
Yeah.
can't do that when I'm running on empty, because you won't get the best parts of me. An example for me was communication. I am not the type person that I can, especially when things come to a head or there's conflict. I need to process and think. I need to react in my own way by myself. So I need to be like, ah, by by myself, because I will I will do that because I'm human. So I'd be like, who you think you? I need to get,
Oh,
what do you think? So I need to get that out, right? And then I need to reflect on it. I need to
yeah,
rest on it. And then I need to respond
yeah,
so I can have a healthy discourse with you and then I don't fracture the relationship further. For me, that's my self care. But
yeah.
I've been in situations before when the person is just like, talk to me now, talk to me, talk to me. And I'm just like, we're at the first stage though. So I'm
Right.
going
Like I promise you, it's not in your best
I
interest.
pro and
Have
I
this
and
conversation.
one of my and that's the one thing about like learning self-care was also learning that I have toxic traits too. So I'm just like,
Mm.
yo, if you want that smoke, like I told like like so I had to be like, no, I need to respond to you rather than react. Because if I react to you, then you're not going to get the best version of me.
Yeah.
And learning, I used to give people the power when they wanted a reaction or they wanted to talk. I would just talk when they wanted to talk. And self care for me was learning to be like, no, I need to, I need to take time, or learning that I need space. Like I need a phone call instead of in person.
Mhm.
Like learning
Mhm.
where I'm comfortable and being
Yes.
unapologetic about that.
Like I'm the same way. Like I kind of like whenever it comes to confrontation and things like that, like I will emotionally just shut down in the
Mm,
moment because now I'm overwhelmed and I don't know what to do with that information. So I'm just like, okay, shut down. Like emotions are like shut down and just like let it rock. Whatever is happening, let it happen.
mm.
And then I need to step away and be by myself. And sometimes it takes like days, sometimes it's like weeks before I'm able to like
Right.
really even like articulate like what I'm feeling. Like, and that's a pet peeve about myself that
Mm,
I will say I don't like. Like sometimes I'm just like I have a delayed reaction to things because I don't know what I'm feeling in the moment because it's just
mm,
so overwhelming and coming at me.
mm.
So it takes me a while to really process and really be able to put like words to feelings. And like 3 days later, I'll be like, "Did she do that? She really did that to me? Like,
Mm-hmm. I'm like, for sure.
she had the nerve to do that?" Like 3 days
Yeah.
later, like she done lived going about her life already, and I'm still like, "She really had the nerve to do that?"
Yeah.
Like it's finally
Right.
catching up. So I totally feel you, but I think you hit on some really great things, which is like being able to draw boundaries. Like
Mm,
that's a form of self-care. And that's a
mm,
form of self-care that I've also had to put into practice as well. Like I'm very much a person who I don't like conflict. I don't like confrontation. I will avoid it as much as I possibly can if I can.
mm,
Um and part of that one of those like avoidance strategies is like people pleasing. So I'm like, okay, yeah, if you want to have this conversation now, okay, fine, because I want to appease you. You know what I mean? Not necessarily thinking about if it's going to be helpful for me in that moment, but thinking about this other person and like how the other person's going to take it, how they're going to feel. And that was something that I had to really like call myself on and be like, you got to stop people pleasing. Like you have to be able to honor and respect your feelings because they're just as important. People pleasing for me, I think comes from a place of like you're putting other people's feelings above your own. You're honoring those feelings above yourself.
mm,
And it's not healthy to do that. Like you got to be able to put yourself first and come from a place of self-love first and then respond and respond to that rather than react. So like
mm,
drawing boundaries is a big thing for me, a big form of self-care. Being intentional about like who I'm spending time with and like how I spend my energy, what I give my energy to, what I don't give my energy to, because I'm just like, this is not good for me. This is not good for my spirit. This is not good for like, who I want to be. Like, I gotta like either limit my time or like cross those things or people out or whatever, needs to be done. um, but another thing that you said that I wanted to touch on too, um, in terms of like handling conflict is like I think a big part of it is also being able to be curious, right? A lot of the times like we're so caught up in our own feelings that we lose the ability to really like ask questions. And it goes back to the part of like having empathy and compassion, right? A lot of conflicts can be resolved if we came from a place of being curious rather
Mm,
than I need you to hear me and I need you to hear my point. I need you to understand where I'm coming from.
right.
Like if we ask each other questions like, okay, like, well, what was your experience of this? Maybe help me understand what I'm not getting. Did you see it differently? Here's how I saw
Mm-hmm.
it. Like what how do you feel about this? Where did that come from? Like where does this trigger come from for you? Maybe I didn't realize I was hitting. Like
Mm-hmm.
coming from a place of curiosity instead of like I just want to get my point across and I don't even care what you got to say. I just need you to know
Mm-hmm.
that you heard what I said and that's it. Like,
Yes,
it just is so
conflicts is like it's not a war. It really is.
exactly.
Conflicts are. I've started. 2020 was the year I started having healthy conflicts,
Mm,
and I learned.
healthy conflicts.
And I learned that one of the biggest things there's this podcast by Brene Brown, Unlocking Us. There's this powerful episode, two episodes on apologizing.
Mm,
And once I started to implement that into my conflicts, because
yeah.
uh, the person, Dr. Harriet Lerner, she's the author of The Dance of Anger and
Mm,
a lot of spin-offs like Dance of This and Dance of Intimacy and all that stuff. And I
mm-hmm.
really want to get those books and read them. And she was like, apologizing is self-care in the term. I'm paraphrasing it for my own experience, but like apologizing is showing respect to your self-worth, showing respect to your
Mm,
self-esteem. If you
yeah.
can take the time to uh, just listen to somebody else's experience and learn and understand that because we have so many different life experiences, we are
Yeah.
constantly being hurt and also hurting others because what may seem normal to somebody may seem traumatic to someone else. And we
Yeah.
have to hold space for that. Just because it's normal to us, a lot of times because something is normal to us, we're like, what do you mean?
What do you mean you're upset about
I
this?
didn't I didn't mean like that. Like
Right.
why are you taking it like that? It's
Yeah.
like, no, like I didn't see it from that point of view.
Right.
Wow, thank you for helping me understand that. And learn and I started to implement that in my conversations, in my conflicts. And some relationships ended, some didn't, but they were so like the endings were so graceful.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you touched on what my next thing too was just that, part of self-care is also recognizing like when you have to let certain relationships go. Like sometimes
Yeah.
you just gotta let people you surrender, let it
Mhm.
go, let people go. And that's self-care too. Like that's okay too, because I think if I always look at it as like a lesson, whether people are entering my life or leaving.
Mm,
For me, it's like, okay, there's always a season and a time for everything. What can I take? What did I learn from this relationship? What are
mm.
things that I want to carry forward into future relationships? What are things that maybe I can leave behind? I don't need to carry with me.
What no
Um,
longer serves my better good. Yeah.
exactly, and so it's all part of the crazy, crazy but beautiful, changes of
Yeah.
life.
Right. And it's just like there's seasons for everything. There's seasons. And it doesn't just because a relationship is ending doesn't cheapen or lessen the moments that you shared with that person.
Exactly.
Those moments are still valid. Those feelings that you had with that person in the time are still valid and you can hold those and cherish those. And
Absolutely.
that I think when relationships are ending, we lose sight of that and we're just and then we overwrite all of those beautiful
Yes.
memories.
Yes, it all becomes negative and you're like,
Right.
"This
This
person's
person's this.
horrible."
Oh my God. Ah! And it's just like, no, this person was a beautiful person in my life. Like I really connected with this person.
Yeah,
And because of this person, I'm able to move forward and be an even better version of me. And I
exactly.
and I and I can genuinely this time, because I've grown and I'm growing and evolving, I can genuinely wish them well
Yeah.
in
Oh, that's a
peace.
big thing. Yeah. That's a big
Yeah.
and that's true. I think And I think that also touches on another part of self-care too, is like not holding on to resentment, not holding on to, bitterness,
Mm,
right? Like, but really being able to um just really understand and really use it as like a growth and a learning experience, and taking the good with that and moving that forward,
mm,
like I can't hold bitterness for the life of me. Like
mm,
I've tried to like really stay angry at people. I really tried. It's just not in
mm,
me. It's not in me. I can be upset for like a while, but like eventually it's just like it just doesn't feel good. Like it doesn't align with my spirit. It doesn't align with who I am.
mm,
And like I've started this thing where like even if like I don't talk to you anymore, or like we fell out or whatever, like I still pray for that person. And it sounds
mm,
crazy, but like for me that's important for me. Like if I can pray for you knowing the craziness you done did, like that's a big thing for me, and to really genuinely mean it,
mm,
and in doing that I've learned a lot about like how strong I actually am emotionally, because not a lot of
mm,
people can get past that. A lot of people stay stuck in the hurt of everything. um and for me to be like, okay, you know what, no, I'm purposely not gonna do that, because that's not where I want to stay. That's not helpful to me in any way.
mm.
um but let me pray for your healing. Let me pray for you, and not mean it in a petty way. Like, oh yeah, girl, I'm gonna pray for
I'll
you.
pray for
You need
you.
prayer. You need all the prayer. Like, I
Yeah, no, no, no. Yeah. Mm,
pray for that person's healing and well being.
and
And
wish them well on their journey,
yeah,
because just because a
exactly.
relationship is ending doesn't mean that it's like it's too much. You both were growing, and the space was becoming filled, and you're growing in different directions. Not to say there's still moments that I need to heal from. So there'll still be like
Right.
little
Right.
pockets of anger for me, little pockets of grief for me, little pockets of
Yes.
loss for me, and they come up every now and then. But I definitely agree with that. Being able to wish the person well from afar,
From afar.
from afar. um, that's something that I still need to grow into. I take things to the heart when I get hurt.
Yes.
So
I'm the same.
I'll I will hold it for I will forgive. I'm very easy to forgive. I won't forget though.
Forget it. Exactly. Exactly.
I will not forget.
Yeah, all of that, girl.
Yeah, that's a big one too, like learning that balance of not because my cutoff game was strong.
Girl, me too.
But I
Me
learned
too.
that
It
you don't
slipped
need to
and it was like, bye.
but I learned that like you don't need to cut people off. Not necessarily. It depends on like the level. Like if someone is choosing to stay in their toxicity and it doesn't align with who you are and who you're becoming, then you will have to the length of space between, like you will have to distance yourself even further. I don't believe in cutting people off anymore. I believe in just changing the level of intimacy so you both can exist in the same space.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't take well to that because it's a very painful thing when you set boundaries with someone
Yeah.
and you want to operate with them from a lower level of intimacy, but it's like you're doing that out of love for the
Yeah.
person, and it's just like I want to show up as my best self for you.
That's the thing. Once you know that you're doing what's best for you,
Mm,
that that is really the most important part. Because you're right, like it's painful. Nobody wants to like end relationships. Nobody wants, it's hard to draw boundaries and like make that distance. Nobody wants to experience that. It's painful.
mm,
It's painful, and it we do interpret it, I think, as a loss a lot of the times. Like I'm losing
mm,
something. I'm losing an aspect of, this relationship that was really important. But I think it's also really important to just recognize, okay, yeah, but you're also gaining something else in return.
right,
You can't
right,
lose anything without something coming back to
right.
fulfill. So yeah, I think as long as you know like you're doing what's best for you, then that's where the self-love comes in. That's where the
Mm,
self-care comes in. Like you got to be able to give and love yourself and value what it is that you need, before you can start meeting anybody else's needs. And
Right.
you're right. Like sometimes it comes back around. You know, this might just be for a temporary short season, and then you guys find a way back to each other, and
Yes.
or maybe not. Maybe it's forever.
Maybe not. Right.
But that's also okay too. That doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing either.
It's beautiful in its own way too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let life do what it needs to do. Accept and
Let life
surrender.
do what it do. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you never know. Like, you could be doing yourself a disservice, and you can be doing the other person a disservice when you try to hold on to things. When
Yeah.
it's past the time that it needs to, because we
Yeah.
don't, the thing that I think we look at certain people, and we want certain people to fill certain roles in our lives, and we think that's going to be forever. But I stopped looking at forever. I look at as long as time allows.
I love that. I love that.
As long as time allows.
Time allows. I
Because
love that.
because there have been times for me personally also when someone decided that a relationship had run its course, and I wasn't ready for it to, it happens on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And you have to trust that, like, this is a time for it to go. And
Yeah.
that's okay. And
That's
that's beautiful too. That's beautiful too.
I love
Wow.
that. As time allows
As
it.
long
Because
as long as time allows.
nothing
Yeah.
is guaranteed. And I love the fact that you mentioned too, like sometimes you don't it may not even be about you. Like
Mhm.
sometimes that person needs to experience their own journey,
Right.
and it doesn't involve you,
Mhm.
and that's not a bad thing. They just need to experience this journey that you're not meant to be a part of at this moment,
Mm.
so that they can grow and they can be their best selves and they can do their thing. Like
Mm.
sometimes, a lot of times, I feel like we internalize things and we make it about us when it doesn't necessarily need to be that. Like
Yeah.
I remember reading one of my favorite books, The Four Agreements, and one of the
I have
agreements,
to get that book. Oh my
it's so
god.
good.
Yeah.
You would love it. But one of the agreements is don't take things personally. Like nothing in life, don't take it personal. Whether it is a negative situation or even a positive situation. Even in instances where people are like, "Oh my god, you're amazing. You're the most amazing person I ever met." Like don't take it personal, because that can change like at the drop of a dime. That may not even necessarily be about you. It's really about just having that detachment of like, it's bigger than you. Like this is not just all about you. It is bigger than you. It is bigger than, your experience. It's also about this other person's experience that
Mm.
probably has nothing to do with you.
Mm.
That's fine.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, so yeah, I love that though. Less time allows. Like allowing things to happen as time allows.
As long as time allows, because it's not just, and I think for me that has been like really important to me, because just to a reminder every day to stay in the moment.
Yes.
A reminder every day to stay in the moment, and I think, like you said, like we can feel multiple things at the same time. So you're gonna be hurt when relationships are ending, and you can allow space for that, but also to cherish it and be like, we had some really great moments, but the time is done,
It's
and
fine.
that and we get to move on, and trust that everyone knows whenever someone tells you like, yo, like, or they take that space, trust that they know what's best for them. Like, people
Exactly.
insert, like when you say don't take it personal, people insert their own experiences
Yeah.
and force things, and it's like, you just have to trust that everyone knows what's best for them.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
facts.
Facts, facts. Talking about relationships, how has self-care and self-love impacted your relationships, whether on a business level or a personal level?
Oh man, I don't think I realized how important self-love was and self-care was until this year, to be honest with you, because it was just with everything going on, and
Mhm.
then on top of that, like I experienced like a breakup this year, and I was like,
Mm.
that like threw my whole shit off. Like
Mm,
I was just
mm,
like, what the hell is happening? And it's moments like I was saying before, like where you're really like at your low point, that you really start to really face yourself and be honest
mm.
with yourself. And I didn't realize I always knew like, oh yeah, self-love, that's important. That's a thing. We should all have that. Like that's great.
Right.
But until you're going through something difficult, you start being like, okay, what does this actually really mean though? Like, do I actually really have this thing that I know that is good for me to have? Like, what does this look like actually in, you know, in real life, you know? And so that was part of the journey for me. Part of it was like really coming to terms with the fact that I didn't have as much self-love as I thought I did. And facing the hard truth about that, and then being like, okay, well, what are you gonna do about it now? Like,
Mm.
how are we gonna address that? You know, what do
Mm.
we need to do? And a lot of it was really kind of going back and examining, like, okay, where are these things coming from? And that's why I mentioned earlier too, like being aware of like the messages that you receive that you inherited from other people that's not necessarily about you or not true, but you inherently grow up with these things, and then choosing like a better messages that are more in alignment with who you know yourself to be, right? And so I had
Mm.
to really dissect that and separate that. I had to be like, okay, where did I get this line of thinking from? I'm telling myself these negative things about myself. Where did I get that from? Where did I learn that from? Why do I have these, thoughts replaying like in my
Mm.
mind over and over again? Um,
Mm.
what experiences did I have? And like really examining and going deep into that, and then trying to like shift and reframe it, and being intentional and purpose about it. Because I think a lot of the times, sometimes the negative messages are so ingrained that we don't realize like how much it really does impact like every aspect of our lives, and then we get comfortable sitting there. We get
Mm.
comfortable being in like absorbing the energy of those messages and being comfortable in that space. And it's really being, intentional about changing that up. And it's scary because it's like, well, this is new. This feels
Mm.
weird, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes the toxic feels more comfortable, which is
Whew.
crazy.
Whew. Yes.
you know?
The
Sometimes
toxic.
it feels more comfortable.
It does.
Uh I really had to examine that and really, you know, come to terms with that. And it's hard. I tell people this all the time. The hardest truths that you'll ever have to face is really when you're facing yourself. That's the hardest,
Mm. Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
don't want to admit to yourself that you're lacking or something, or that you really got to face this, that you're not as perfect as you thought you were.
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
you really
Right.
got to come to terms with yourself and really fight
Mm.
yourself. Um,
Mm.
so for me, it was relearning all the things that I had absorbed, even without me even realizing it about myself, and then
Mm.
shifting that. And so for me, one of the things that I recently, when I say recently, like maybe a few months ago, started getting into is really like listening to positive affirmations like throughout the day and as I fall asleep.
Mm.
And that was really helpful. So like there's this like YouTube channel that I listen to that has like positive affirmations for everything. I started listening to that. I started listening to it as I fall asleep.
Mm.
And then um even like sometimes throughout the day, like sometimes I'll start my morning with it. Sometimes, if if I know that I need to pick me up, or I know I'm like, something's off with me today. I'm not feeling right. Like let me try to, get myself together. Let me try to like raise my vibrations a little bit. And then
Mm.
I'll listen to it. That way also like like it's retraining your mind, right? In a lot of ways, like retraining your mind from what it's used to, and just having it like seep into your subconscious, like, yeah, you are worthy, yeah, you are deserving,
Mhm.
um yeah, you are amazing, yeah, you're not perfect, but nobody is, and that's okay. Like that's what makes you special,
Mm.
like really just changing your mindset and being just very purposeful about it. And it's a choice. Like you got to do it every day. I try to do it as much as I can. Sometimes, like you said, like it doesn't always work out at every moment. Sometimes, like I said, the toxic feels comfortable and you're like, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to sit
Yep.
in this and I'm going to sit in these negative thoughts because that's what feels good to me right now. But you
Mm.
got to be able to like pick yourself up after a while and be like, okay, no, this ain't working. Let's
Right.
try this again.
Right. Right. And we all come with toxic traits. We all have things that we have to unlearn and face. within ourselves. One thing I learned was that we all have a shadow, like the darker hidden parts of us. And that was the start of a lot of my journey as well, just learning that there are things about myself that I tried to hide and they came up,
Mm-hmm.
and learning to make peace with them, make peace with the darker parts and loving them and showing them love because they deserve love too.
Yeah. I one of my best friends, Megan, shout her out.
Mhm.
She
Megan, yes, she was in concert choir with us
she
too,
was
right?
for a while, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love her.
Hi, Megan.
But one of the things that she told me that I think I always hold dear and put into practice, and she's like, you got to be aware of your inner child and the love that your inner child, didn't get. And whenever you are down about yourself, or whenever you feel things like popping up or getting triggered, like, be aware that that's your inner child and show love to that inner child in a way that it hadn't received it before.
Mm,
Very intentional about it as an adult, and treat that inner child like a part of you, because it is a part of you, and nurture
mm,
it and give it the love and the acknowledgement that it needs, because that's how you also, grow your self-love, by being patient and caring and nurturing towards yourself, and
mm.
realizing you deserve that. So she was like, you should print out a picture of you as a baby. And whenever you feel down and whenever you're talking negative about yourself, you look at that child and you start to
Yeah,
get light. And I was like, that's actually really brilliant.
and that's a really insightful thing that you told Jerry. Yeah, a lot of those crazy like emotions that you feel, like that's your inner child trying to connect with you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like showing love to her and telling her that it's okay and she'll be protected.
she's okay. She's safe.
Hmm.
She's
Yeah,
good. Like, you know better now. So,
right.
like, it's so true.
And reconnecting with yourself also means reconnecting with all of the lost, not the lost parts, but like the hidden parts of you.
Yes.
Learning that it's not just we are the awareness of everything that's going on inside of us. It's so insane. Like there's I for me, there's the higher self, there's the inner child, there's the shadow self, there's me, there's
Yeah.
and learning how to learn all of those things and learn that they all contribute to this life that we're living,
Yeah.
and giving, oh my gosh, giving love to little Gerri and little Kerri is so,
Yes.
so, so important.
So important. I
Yeah.
actually have a question for you.
Ooh.
You touched on it earlier, but how do you, in your experience, tell the difference between, like, when your ego is talking and
Yeah.
when your higher self is operating?
I think for me, if I say something out of character, like sometimes you say something and you tell someone, "Oh, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I don't know where that came from." It's
Mhm.
probably your ego talking or your shadow self talking. For me, my inner child would come out like with um with anger when I like it was a like contained. Like I didn't one thing that I'm learning, I didn't learn how to express anger in healthy ways. And I used to think that anger was a bad thing. So I used to like
Yeah.
resist it, resist it, resist it until I couldn't hold it anymore. And then boom goes the
Carrie, you and
volcano.
I are the same person. This is crazy.
I used to like hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it,
Yes.
and then blow.
Yes.
And I had to I went to therapy to figure all of this out.
Yeah.
And my therapist was telling me that it was because my inner child was trying to communicate with me. So if I'm feeling like really intense emotions about something, that's
Mhm.
definitely my inner child being like, "Hey, Kerri, I need you
Pay
to."
attention.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, it was just like usually when I'm like, who does she think she's talking to, or who the fuck you think? Like that's usually my ego. So it's usually like your ego is like really puffed up, and in a way, it's also trying to protect you, but it's
Yes.
like doing overdrive.
It's doing the most.
The most, yeah, it's doing the most, and it's usually in a fixed mindset. Like it doesn't see the changes of things. It's usually in a negative train of thought.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not balanced at all. It's very black and white. It doesn't want to. It doesn't want a solution. Like it
Right.
doesn't. She curses a lot.
Solution is you gonna get this cuss out.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
solution.
yeah. Yeah. So just learning that, and you learn to. For me, journaling has been really big for me. So
Yeah.
I can see the different parts of, you know, see the different parts of my ego coming out.
I love that. And I
Yeah.
I totally agree. Like journaling for me has been I don't think I would be like a whole different person. I think if I didn't start
Oh
journaling.
gosh, yeah. Everybody was gonna get all the smoke,
All the
like
smoke all the time.
whenever you wanted it, whenever you wanted it. I'm
You
here.
didn't ask for this, it's okay. I'm gonna give it to you
I'm gonna
anyway.
give it to you anyway. Blessings on you and your household.
Let me tell you
Let me tell
about
you, right. Meanwhile, I'm just projecting. I'm
your
just projecting about myself, but I'm turning it around on you and telling you, let me tell you about yourself.
you.
Because
Exactly.
I haven't journaled in 12 years. So let me tell you about yourself. How about that?
How that?
How about it? So
No,
true.
it's so true. Like
Yeah.
I feel like journaling like literally saved my life. Like for real.
Oh, whew, yes.
For real.
Yes. I had to journal every day too,
I
just to
had to
like,
I had to do it. I had to do it. And it's just something about getting it out on paper, getting it out on the page, and like
mhm,
just leaving it there. And
yeah.
not having it necessarily like talk back to you or like give you some unsolicited opinion that you didn't ask for.
Mhm,
Like just leaving it there and then being able to be like, okay, I visually see this.
mhm.
Now let me like, what can I do
Right.
to adjust?
Right. For me, my experience, it released me and it made me
Yeah.
feel so much lighter. And when I don't journal, I like to use this metaphor. Like I kind of tase myself when I don't tase myself with those strong emotions when I don't journal.
Mm,
Because it's just like
mm.
it's energy bouncing back and forth like all over the place. So it's
Yeah.
just like I need to put this out on paper and release it to the universe. And no judgment, no judgment. It's
Exactly.
a no judgment zone. So like that
Exactly.
paper now gets all that smoke. Like that paper and pen, because that's a healthy way to deal with those difficult emotions by journaling, you
True.
know? And
You
it's an
also
outlet.
you touch on something too, which is really important, and I think is also really important to my self care practice as well. Because you're right, like all of those emotions are energy,
Mm,
and there has to be an outlet to get it out. And this is why like I love like exercising, but I also love dancing. I love something
mm,
that keeps me physically moving because to me like that's an energy outlet. That's a way for me to get whatever energy or feelings, emotions are stored up to get it out. Whether it's sweating it out, whether it's like moving it out, but just like doing something different. And so that was something that I had learned. I forgot where I learned it. I think it was another YouTube video or something
mm,
like that. But it was about like the person was talking about how do you get out this energy and how you store up all of these things. You store up trauma, you
mhm,
hold it physically in your body, and sometimes you do need to physically move it out and get it out. And like
mm,
that's been so helpful for me, especially because like you said, same thing, like I don't know, I'm very bad at like processing anger. I don't know what to do with it. And I will go from 0 to 100. I used to do that all the time and not realizing like why did her like saying this stupid thing just
just
like
made me blow the
oh
top. Right.
exactly, like it wasn't even that crazy, but it was me building up
Right.
all of the stuff over
Right.
a period of time.
Right.
And then finally, like, oh, you didn't expect to catch this smoke today? Yeah, well, you boom,
Today's the day.
right?
And then you feel so bad afterward for because like
Yes,
you're not showing up as your higher self.
exactly,
You're giving the other person the power. You're giving your power away when you express yourself in these unhealthy ways. So just
exactly.
like how can I take my power back?
How can I
How
take it?
can I
How
right,
can I
how
channel it into something,
yeah.
positive? And so, like, movement for me is a big part of that.
Mm.
True.
Movement is very, very important for releasing energy. And sweating is really good for releasing stress.
Mm-hmm.
Crying is really good for releasing
That
stress. It's
too.
not
Yeah.
always a bad thing to cry.
Exactly.
Sometimes I was saying this to someone like Before I used to cry like maybe once or twice a year, and now if I haven't cried in a while, I'm like something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
I need to cry.
Oh my gosh, Kerri, have you ever done this? I know people probably gonna think we're weird, but have you purposely like tried to make yourself cry just to get it out?
Yeah, I'm like, okay, time to put on the one I love Vampire Diaries. So I'm like, time to put on the last 2 episodes of Vampire Diaries. It's time to cry. I'm like, so I'll watch like sad stuff to like to
Just to
produce
release.
those. Right, yeah.
Just to release. I didn't
Right.
know that was like a thing until I saw like a King of Queens episode
Mm,
where Kerri was like doing that. And I was like,
mm,
oh my gosh, that is totally, I do that too. Like, I'll just put
yeah.
on like, and for no reason, but you just need to like release.
Release it, yeah.
So you're just
Yeah.
like, let me put on some Adele real quick. There's
Yeah.
something about it that makes it easier, I think, to like accept.
Mhm.
Like, you
Mhm.
know, like that it just makes it easier to accept, like, okay, this is what I'm sitting with,
Mhm.
and let me just get it out. Because
Mm.
sometimes you don't want to, like, maybe you don't want to acknowledge what it is that's making you really upset in that moment, and you're just not ready.
Mhm.
Yeah, but you just need to get the emotions out. So, like, it
Mhm.
just makes it a more acceptable way of like, let me put this to the side a little bit. Let me attribute this sad song to the reason as to why I'm really sad, even though I know
Right.
deep down that's not really it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
let me just do that to get it out and
Yeah.
then
There
face
have
it.
been times I journaled and I cried as well. That's definitely a good release too.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely been yeah. When I came to a realization about something, and I was like, oh my god, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been good too. But yeah, crying is very good. But the crazy thing is that I as much as I talk about all these things, I don't really come across because I'm a very like reserved person, so I don't really come across as the person doing or saying all of these things. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm a big crier. I just don't cry. I'm not like overly emotional in front of
Can't get
people, but
you
yeah,
know, gotta keep your
yeah.
thug cred.
Thug day, I know. Brooklyn all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? All day. So yeah,
You know,
that's
I'm the biggest crybaby. I cry over everything. Cry over
mm,
happy news. I cry over like sad news, but still
yeah, yeah.
keep it
Yeah,
thug.
I'm definitely like the closer you are to me, the more you'll see me cry. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, I will cry for everything. Like a lot of my relationships, like my ex-boyfriends be like, you cry so much.
Like, are you okay?
Are you okay? Oh my god. And I cry when I'm stressed out too, or when I'm really angry. Like it's just like I use that as a
Oh,
means to I
mm.
use that as a means to release the emotion.
When I'm
So
angry, it's the worst. Like that's the automatic, and I get so mad at myself because I'm like, yo, y'all gonna think I'm a punk, but it's really because
yeah.
I'm
No,
really hurt.
I'm
Like,
yo, or I'm just like oh,
I'm
I'm
trying
gonna
not to
give you. I'm
kill
trying
you.
not to give you the smoke. I'm trying not to give you the smoke, so I'm gonna cry.
I'm gonna cry it
I'm
out.
gonna cry it out. You ever had those when you're super upset about something and you're just like, ooh, I'm gonna start
Yes.
crying.
Yup. Yup. It's like, yo, you done got me all the way effed up right
I
now.
know. Seriously, seriously, yeah. Like it's a I look at it now as a healthy form of release for me.
Yes,
So yeah, it's definitely something that I would recommend. Um, it takes a while though. You have to get back in touch with yourself
you
in
do.
order to feel comfortable to cry. Because I think some people, especially I don't know, I know for a lot of men or black men, they don't cry a lot. From the men that I've experienced, or
Mhm.
that sounds so bad when I said from the men I have
We know
experienced,
what you mean.
from the male relation. Oh, that yeah, the male relationships or friendships.
He's like,
I'm
let me
like,
clarify
let
this.
me clarify this real quick.
Like,
From 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 the men who are in my life, like that's gonna sound better. From the men who are in my life, from like crying is not a thing, and I
yeah,
know black women were supposed to be strong. Crying is not really a thing to do in public. We may do it in
right.
private, but like we're supposed to be the strong
Yes.
black woman. So for me, self-care is also crying,
Yeah.
also allowing myself to be fully in that moment, and also allowing myself to be. It's a form of intimacy. in your
It is.
relationships too.
It is.
Yeah. So
That's
allowing yourself to be vulnerable,
yeah.
that's really, and allowing yourself to be hurt. I'm not so scared about being hurt anymore. Now I'm just like I welcome the difficult. I'm welcoming, learning
Mm.
to welcome the difficult emotions because it means that I care. I'm not I'm not the queen of being unbothered anymore. I'm bothered. I care.
Yeah. Yeah.
I care very much, and I stand. Every day I'm trying to stand more firmly in that truth. Like it's
Yeah.
okay. I'm gonna get hurt by things, and I'm okay to
Yeah.
express that now.
And that's so true because I feel like we don't allow ourselves to really sit or really just like allow ourselves to feel like when
Mm,
especially like when we're hurt. And I it reminds me of like a quote that I had read that was like, I'm paraphrasing it, but like part of the reason that we are afraid to like really sit in difficult emotions is because we're afraid that we won't be able to recover from it. And it'll
mm,
be just overwhelming. And like you really have to be able to trust yourself and to trust that you will get over it. You will get through it. You have to move through it, but you will recover from it and it's going to be okay.
mm,
You're going to be fine. So I think that's a big part of it too. Is like we don't give ourselves the space to feel. And I think especially like as Black people, we're it's not looked we're not looked at as people who are like human.
mm.
We're not supposed to have
Facts.
feelings, like, we are supposed to endure all the time. We're supposed to endure all the pain. There are even like, scientific like experiments about like Black people in pain and like people thinking that we can endure like a whole astronomical amount of
Right.
pain compared to like white people. And it's like, no, like
Right.
we feel it. Like,
Mm,
but that's the narrative that's spun. So like, and it's not weak too. I think a lot of time we spin it as like, oh, it's a weakness if you cry. It's a weakness if you're hurt. But it's not weak. Like it's human. We're human.
mm,
And we deserve to allow moments where we don't feel as strong, where we do feel hurt, where we are feeling pain, and to not brush it off to the side like I'm good. Like I know I'm good for that. I'll be like, I'm good. No, damn,
mm.
I ain't good. Like I am not.
It's cool. It's fine.
It's
It's
fine.
whatever. It's whatever.
It's whatever. Like it's not though.
It's
Like
not whatever though. Yeah. I'm gonna go home and cry real quick, but it's whatever though. I'm gonna go home and fall on the floor on my face,
balling like a
and
baby.
bawl my eyes out. But it's whatever though.
Whatever. It's
It's
whatever.
whatever. It's whatever.
But it's like what you said, like there's beauty in that. There's beauty in being vulnerable. And I think, going back to the community thing, like if you find even like one person who you feel comfortable, sharing that part of yourself with, like you're blessed, like
Oh yes. Oh, such a blessing to share. Oh, that makes me emotional. Just to
yeah,
share your internal world with somebody and have
yes.
them accept you for it, like all the pieces, the good parts and the bad. That's such a blessing in this life for the people who can experience that, and I hope everyone has a chance to experience that because
Same.
it's a beautiful.
It's so great. It's so
Mhm.
great. And I have to say, like, I'm gonna shout out all my girls now. Like I'm blessed to say that I have that community of like
Mm,
girlfriends from like high school still that we still are together. Shout out to all y'all. Y'all know who you are.
mm,
Uh, but like I can count on like, one hand, like, my close knit of like these are my girls. These are the people that I know I can really show myself and be vulnerable with and be authentic with.
mm,
And that's very hard to come by. And especially I'm gonna bring it a little bit back to, Caribbean culture too. Like
mm.
a lot of times, I don't know if it's the same for you, but growing up, the message I got was like, don't trust nobody.
Ugh.
Like you don't trust nobody.
Yep. Like don't trust your left
Don't put
hand
your little
going in.
friends in them.
Don't trust your left hand going in your right pocket. Friends will bring you come, but they won't bring you go.
My mom always says, "What your right hand know, don't let your left
Right.
hand know it." Like, you know.
Show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Like all
Yes,
of these things. Yeah.
all of these things that
And it's
is
ingrained, is like you said, those voices are ingrained. So
yeah,
when we enter intimate relationships, we have those mindsets, those things already ingrained in us, and they
exactly.
start to play out.
They start to play out. And
Yeah.
like, so I've been very fortunate to say like I haven't had that experience. I mean, I've had
Mm.
people who, have betrayed my trust or whatever, but like it hasn't stopped me from being like, oh no, all friends are bad, everybody's evil or I can't trust them,
Right. Right.
thankfully. But yeah, I think just even having one person, I'm lucky to say that I have like a whole tribe, that I
Mm.
can really be vulnerable and share myself with. Some from most of them from high school, some from even making friendships as adults. Just even having one person to like really acknowledge and fully see you and like who you are, like that's important.
It's very important. Going back to the empathy thing, it's just like you need someone to see you for all of who you are, and
Yeah.
you can help them understand. That's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
It's a very beautiful thing to feel safe with someone and to be seen. And that's
Yeah.
important. That's really important to me. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. So, what is the best advice you've ever received?
So I would say there's two pieces. The first is I don't know if I actually received it. I kind of just read it because I love quotes and I love like collecting quotes and stuff.
Hmm.
And Maya Angelou has like some of my favorite quotes. And one from her is like, when people show you who they are, believe them. So
Hmm.
that's something that I live by. That's one of my favorites, especially because I'm so sometimes people show me and they show me clearly and I still am just like, oh, but they're not like that.
No, it's like no, like
Like
maybe if I like, they just need to show them love. Like
I just need to love them.
I
And
just
then
need to love them. Like I need to
yeah,
just like bring the love out of them.
such a bad that's not bad, but
It's
it's
not bad. I think it's part of the learning human experience. Like it's something that you
yes,
need to. It's one of those growing pains and learning experiences that we go through.
exactly. So hearing that quote, like she broke it down when she was speaking about it. I heard her. I think it was like in an interview with Oprah or something.
Mm,
And when she was explaining it, I was like, that makes so much sense. She was like, people know who they are. They know themselves better than anybody else know them. So if they're telling you who they are, believe who they are. Like, who are you to argue? And then the other piece of advice that I would say was actually from my mom. She probably will tell you she never said this, but she did. But I remember when I was a teenager, we were like going somewhere. We were on the
mm,
bus and we were going somewhere. And it was very rare because like a lot of the time, like spending like time with my mom was very rare because she was always working.
mm.
So I remember it specifically because of that moment. But we were like on the bus going somewhere. And like Caribbean parents, they randomly want to like bust out a proverb out of nowhere. You're like, well, I didn't even ask for this. I don't know
Right.
where this came from or why you're telling me this right now.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah. Just be like.
Like, okay. Like, we were talking about the weather. Why are you telling me about, this new life lesson that you wanted to spit on me? But okay.
Mm,
But she was like, I may not always understand like why you do what you do. And people may not always understand your choices and why you do what you do. But as long as you know that it is aligned with who you are and you know that you're doing the best thing for you, I don't need to understand and nobody else needs to understand it. Just do what you need to do for you. Do what feels right for you.
mm,
And the understanding will come later. That will come after.
mm,
But, as long as you know you are making the right decision with what is in alignment with who you are and what you need to do, I may fuss, I may say something, people may not like it, they may not agree, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter. You just need to follow your heart and follow what's
mm,
right for you. And if you know anything about my mom, she's not really that type of person. That like she'll be like, do what I say, like you should care. I'm upset, and you should care. So that's why I said she
mm,
probably will forget that she
mm.
said that.
That's
But yeah,
beautiful.
that was like the best piece of advice that I think I've ever received, is always remembering, all right, listen, people may not understand why I chose to go this route or make this decision, but at the end of the day, that will come after. Like that's not something I need to focus on. I just need to make sure that it's in alignment with what I know is right for me.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as that's the case, then I'm Gucci. And as long as that's the case and I'm not hurting anybody else, then
That's very important. As long as you're not causing harm to someone, and
yeah.
it doesn't have to be physical. It has to is all the other ways that you can possibly harm someone. Be very mindful of that. Yeah, that's very true. That's a beautiful piece of advice. I love that. What makes you most proud to be a Caribbean? And what are 3 words that you would use to describe your Caribbean culture experience? Yeah.
Oh man, I love everything about us, man. I love everything about our culture. Like we the shit. Like we got the swag, we cool, our food is always on point.
Happen.
Like what? Our music is always on point. Our dancing is always on point. Like
Happen.
we just got the swag, man. It's just we just have a different type of swag that's just like you can't touch it.
It's elite. It's elite. It's top notch. Right. It's facts. No
So
shade, no tea, just facts.
Okay. So I just love us. I love who we are as a people. I love how resilient we are. I love how skilled we are in making so many things out of very little. Making do and like making it prosper, with as little as we start out with. I love the fact that we're so laid back until you like do something crazy, but at the same time we can like curse you out and then bless you in the same sentence.
Right.
Like,
same thing is about that smoke. Like we're very calm people.
Right.
We're very I would like to say we're easygoing and calm to an extent, because we're very fiery and peppery too.
Yes. Got a little spice. We got some spice.
But yeah, we got some spice. But if you want that smoke, you can get it.
You can get it. You can get all of it, But at the same time we'll be like, and I hope the Lord blesses you on your life. Like,
right. And I done talk.
And I
done talk now.
I love that. I love everything about a culture. And I don't know, 3 words to describe. I would say community is one. Complex is another. I think our culture can also be very complex. As great as it is, we got some, we're not perfect, but
yeah.
We got some complexities to us, but that's okay. And I would say just it's really 2 words. I'm gonna combine it. Like we're warm and we're loving. Like we're just a warm. I would say, you know what? I'm gonna describe it as home. It's just it's a very comforting, loving aspect of like that home. It's home. Like Caribbean culture is home for us. Like that's who we are. So
I love that. What does self-love and self-care mean to you?
Oh man, it means everything. I think it's self-love for me it's like the basis of everything else. Like it's the source of how I show up in the world. It's the source of like how I interact with people. Like how I am with other people is a demonstration of like how I feel about myself. If I'm interacting with you, let's say if I was a mean person and I was interacting with you all types of crazy like all the time, then you can pretty much like gather that maybe I'm not feeling that great about myself. So the love that I share and that I have for just people in general and for life in general, that stems from me learning how to love myself and me really valuing myself, because I can't give it to others if I don't have it for me. What am I giving? So to me, like self-love is the source of everything. Self-care is the same way. Like to me, it's not just a thing that you do, it's a lifestyle. It's a spiritual practice, I think, for me. It's really like what grounds me, what keeps me centered, what keeps me sane, what keeps me going. In a lot of ways, it is like a spiritual practice to like make sure that I'm taking care of myself, making sure that, I'm in alignment as much as possible. And even when I'm not, giving myself the grace to be like, that's okay. I feel like it's more than just, I think Western culture, we take it and we're like, oh, it's more than just, it's brunching and it's yoga and it's like, it's getting my nails done and getting a massage. And those are aspects of it. But I think there's just a deeper meaning and practice behind it. Like, it has to be a lifestyle thing. It has to be something that you really incorporate as part of your life and part of your being. So yeah, I hope that answers
that. It definitely does. Yeah, it's a tender practice. It's more, it's very soft and tender. I can definitely agree with that. So where can our listeners follow you or get connected with you?
So my Instagram is not public, but I will accept requests. So you can find me on Instagram at Gerri Berry, GERRI BERRI 26. Or you can also email me. I answer emails. So you can email me at gkc240@nyu.edu. Yeah, just ask about me. I don't know.
Thank you so much, Gerri, for being a guest on KERRIISMS Speaks. I'm so happy and proud to share this space with you. Thank you so much.
I'm so happy too. Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is such a beautiful conversation. I want to really thank Gerri for being a part and being a guest on KERRIISMS Speaks. It was such an honor to talk to her after all of these years. So I'm really glad that I had that opportunity. It was a very, very beautiful conversation. And I hope that you all enjoyed it and learned so much from it. Definitely being a member of the Caribbean community and how that impacts our own separate journeys of self-love and self-care. And then looking to see how it intersected, it was just really great to talk to her and to see her side and to see her experiences in terms of that. So I want to thank you, Gerri. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. If you would like to follow her or get to know more about Gerri, go to Instagram and follow her at Gerri Berry 26 on Instagram, and you can let her know that you found her through the KERRIISMS Speaks podcast. You can also follow me at KERRIISMS everywhere on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, what else? Just all the social media. All of the information will be in the description box below. This has been your KERRIISMS coming to you live, reminding you to stay tuned and to stay true. Goodbye.
Thank you all for tuning in. I am truly grateful for every single one of you. Please remember to subscribe to this podcast, rate it, and leave a review. Any feedback you have would be greatly appreciated. You can also contact me directly at KERRIISMS.co. That's KERRIISMS.co. This has been your KERRIISMS coming to you live, reminding you to stay tuned and to stay true, my beautiful crew. Over and out.